with me, JB. Hope we're all doing extremely well this Sunday evening, 22nd of March. So this week is going really, really quick. Look, to get into it, look, tonight we're going to get into the Balaba stuff. Now, look, I want to get into why I would still take it. Now, look, I was going to do a show last night. And look, this was based on the Brighton game. So this was based on Liverpool losing. And look, I don't revel in other people's defeats, but we did have to win last night. So one of the things that was going to prompt the show last night was basically Balaba didn't play, and I kind of wanted to basically say that I think he's done. But look, I've gone back today, I've gone and looked at the stats, and I think for me, I think I'm still right now. But look, we will get into the Balaba debate, and I wanted to compare him with Casemiro as to what Casemiro is now and what I think the reason why I would still go for him as well. So look, guys, get into this amazing community. Scott is in the house, Liam is in the house as well, guys. Hope you're all doing it extremely well. I say Casemiro for 1 more year to spice it up. I'm going to give you my opinion. Look, I know, and I've seen it, the Balaba biased now. The fact that people don't seem to want him based on what other channels have said. Look, I've gone back through the stats from this season. Look, he's still up there. He's still elite. But look, we will go through that, and we will. David is in the house as well, legend, and we will go through and we will compare the two. And look, Casemiro as well. Look, going through Casemiro's stats as well. Look, Casemiro this season, he's been in the top 10. But look, I am going to talk about, and I will get into the chat, guys, because there's loads and loads to talk about. I will get into it and do some comparing. So look, the first thing to say is get into this amazing community. And be respectful to the community, be respectful to me, be respectful to each other, and we get on great. Otherwise, the ban hammer comes out, and Scott and me and anyone else will ban you. And look, we don't mind the banter. I'm not a dictator of this chat. And yeah, look, I really do read out your comments. So let's see what you guys are saying. Evening all, I say Casemiro for a year, Palmer to United. I will come on to that. Do we know the touted fee for Baleba? I think the touted fee he's not going to be 80 million. He's just not going to be that. I think Baleba is going to be around 65 to 70 million. 80 million. Look, I will give you an argument as to those kind of numbers, as to why I would pay those numbers, but there is a limiting factor. So a Bruno G for me, look, I think he would be the best option, but look, we'll talk about that as well. David says Arsenal. Now look, I watched that game. Arsenal bottled it. One of the things that made me laugh towards the end of the match was, I can't remember who, they said something about, they said there goes the quad, right? I don't think, and I'm there thinking, did Arsenal fans really think that they were in for a quad? And look, I don't revel in other people's defeats, but I'm kind of glad this evening that Arsenal fans have got a little bit of a dose of what they've been dishing out. This talk of the quad. Look, it was never going to happen, but it's really, really funny to me how tonight people were saying that is the end of the quad. The quad was never on. The quad was never on. But look, they did bottled it today. Spike said, I wouldn't say no to Baleba. The bottle starts here, says Scott. Arsenal parking the bus, exactly. Arteta disaster class. Mate, I haven't. Oh, Alex, no, mate, that's never going to happen, my friend. But look, I hope you're having a good evening. I think another factor could be Baleba is not going to the World Cup, should make the deal more straightforward. And look, I've seen the rhetoric around this player. We are the best Galatasaray at Old Trafford. Yes, if City win the game in hand, they're 6 points behind. If they beat Arsenal, they're 3 points behind. Says it. Manchester is blue. Look, Manchester is blue tonight in terms of the Carling Cup, in terms of the League Cup. Look, I've got to say this. Look, I will say this to winners of cups. Look, congratulations to City tonight. Look, they won a cup. You know, I think one of the things that I wanted to say, Scott said we all want Arsenal to bottle the league. It is true. It is true. But look, I'm going to say this. Look, you know, I've always said this. The one thing that I admire about a City, and I'm going to say this because I think this is right when we're talking about when we're looking at players, and we'll talk about Cole Palmer, and all the rest of it tonight. I've seen so much stuff tonight, which it's just ridiculous. And I'll tell you my opinion on it as well. But look, whatever we say about them, and look, whatever cup it is, right? I know it's the shitty Tin Pot Cup. Look, but at the end of the day, it's still a cup, right? So look, we can all take the piss, but at the end of the day, City still won a cup, right? And look, City do it because City want to win stuff. You know, City are buying players to win stuff. And yes, I know it's the League Cup. I get that. But City are doing things to win cups. Like I've said this at the beginning of the season. Go back. It's there. Is that we're trying to do things on hope. We're trying to do things on hope and dreams. And what you saw tonight was, look, I know the cup is irrelevant in some respects, but that game, when you've got a City team who are apparently not having the best of seasons, and for those of you, and again, look, I'm sorry to bring this into the show again, but look, we're as a club arguing about one player, and I'm not going to mention his name, about one player, and we need to build a team around a singular player, right? You look at that City team. You look at that City team tonight. I'm not saying it's the best City team. We are miles behind that team. We are miles behind that team, and we should be trying to build a team. That City team, the Arsenal team to a degree as well, is a team. That is where I want to be. Haaland was trash, but that is where I want to be. Look, Haaland, you could argue, was City's main man, but you look at Semenyo. Semenyo today was fucking fantastic. I mean, what an absolute bargain. What an absolute bargain he is. O'Reilly. You know, they've got players. So look, the point I wanted to make before we start talking about players that we want to buy and we want to build a team around. I think Haaland, I think his heart's not in it anymore. I think Haaland wants out. I think Haaland wants to go. But look, when we are talking about players that we're trying to sign, we've got to be talking about building a team, not around a person, but building a team. So I wanted to bring that in there first. And look, City, as much as, you know, look, banter, look, they won a cup. So look, congratulations to them. Before I wanted to go into the Balaba stuff that I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to go through the stats, by the way, because he's a defensive monster, by the way. He's a defensive monster. And it's something that I like. Now, you guys might like something different, but we can go into that as well. Rodri playing like Ugarte. Well, you say that, but Ugarte's stats are still elite. If you look, I've done all the statistical analysis tonight, and if you look at since he's been back, his stats are actually pretty good. So we will go through those as well. I wanted to address tonight, I'm not going to lie, when I do a late show, sometimes I get sent stuff and I look at stuff and I look at, you know, X and that sort of stuff to see the news and check on the news. And one of the things I wanted to say tonight to bring up Scott's point, Cole Palmer. Look, so the Bruno G stuff. So the Bruno G stuff. I'm gonna hit that first. Right, that is the first thing I'm gonna hit. Now look, I have seen thumbnails and reports that United are in talks. Breaking news: the deal is done. You know, he wants to leave Newcastle, which I think he does. Breaking news: the deal is done. United are in for him. Look, United are talking for him, and I just need to prefix this with we've got 3 weeks, by the way. 3 weeks until the next game. So content people have to fill their quota with stuff, right? I'm probably going to be a little bit more quiet because I refuse to spam you guys with shit. I will come on and I will give you my opinion on what I think is a fact and not make you guys, you know, this spam stuff, right? Billy says, the man himself, hope you well, mate. Billy, legend, my friend, and I hope you are extremely well. So, the Bruno, look, do I think that we like this player? Yes, I do. Do I think that we want to talk to this player? Yes. But all these fucking creators tonight, and I'm talking about the biggest channels, right? I just wanted to say these two things. So, the Bruno G stuff, right? Let's just talk about these two things, and I should tell you for the reason why it kind of annoys me. It's because if you look at that, he's going to cost us probably in the region of 80 million, 75 to 80 million. And he's going to want 200k a week, roughly, right? Now, one of the things that people don't talk about because it's boring. It's boring for the numbers, it's boring for people, is this. You've got to put UEFA squad cost first, okay? And the headroom, okay? Bruno G, fucking yesterday, tonight, we've got, I've seen it tonight, that Cole Palmer, the come and get me play. Goldbridge is talking out of his fucking arse. Look, I can't stand calling people out. I think is really, really limited. But when I see this shit, because there's fuck all else to talk about, Goldbridge, I literally watched the first 5 fucking minutes. Somebody sent me a clip of it because I get pissed off people sending me stuff all of the time, right? The headline is this: come and get me plea from Cole Palmer. It's fucking nonsense. He's fucking making shit up for fucking numbers. If you do the math tonight, and the reason why I'm going on a rant tonight is because we're actually going to be talking about a player, right? How are we going to afford these two players? Just even from a financial perspective, I'm not saying I don't want either player. I like both players. Cole Palmer is going to cost you £130 million, whatever happens, and he's going to want 300 to 350k a week, right? Also, Bruno G is going to be about 80 million. So you're talking 230 on two players, add in at least £500,000 a week to the budget. It's bollocks. It is total and utter bollocks. And no one ever calls these fucking morons out. It is a fucking ludicrousness that when we're talking about these plays tonight, and this is the reason why I will never spam you guys on this shit, because it's utter bollocks. It is utter crap. Now, could we do either player? Yes, we could. But we are not going to sign two. So look, all I wanted to say first of all is that when we're talking about this stuff, look, I don't buy into all that shit. This channel is not like those. And look, you guys, I just respect you guys too much to come in with those sorts of stuff. So look, this is why whenever I say stuff, I'll always try to give you the context, and I'm not going to lead with some bullshit of Cole Palmer, he wants to come, and then the very next line is, well, he wants to leave them because, you know, they're not doing well. I mean, just stop fucking making up shit. Fucking Goldbridge, just stop making shit up. Just stop making it up, because it's total shit. Let's have a little look on here, see what we're saying, guys. Liam says there's going to be so much trash around this next few weeks. It is, and it's all going to come. We all know it's all going to come from the biggest channels. We all know it's all going to come to that. They'll fucking hide behind the fucking news, and they're all going to hide behind that because they just are. And it's just frustrating. Guy says, I wonder how many Spurs players will jump ship. Look, let's talk about Spurs. Canada, Dave says, breaking news, JB, won't clickbait. Exactly. So Gobridge always talks out of his arse. He does, but he seems to get away with it. But that's him. Why are Mount and Shaw are at least 150 is a real question. I think you find that Mason Mount is on 250. Mason Mount is on 250k, by the way. I'm an Arsenal fan and respect history. Thanks, buddy. We can afford any player we want in my opinion. Spicy. That's not true, mate. It's not true. I can give you the numbers. I will give you the numbers. Like, I'm going to do a transfer show, Spicy. I'm going to do one. I'm going to do a proper one. None of this clickbait shit. I'll do it in the vertical format, and you can go through it, mate. We can't do it. We're going to be penny pinching, says Scott. Yes, we are. You're too respectful. You're too respectful for football. I try to be. Harry says hello. Our Champions League place will pay for one of the players a bit left over. No way Glazers will spend 50 million. Bruno G takes our team up levels for me. Look, Bruno G is a fantastic player. There is no doubt. I have two concerns on him, and we might as well talk about it because we're going to be talking about this anyway. Bruno G, for me, I think he's a wonderful. I think he's a fantastic player. I also think it is a gamble. Now, look, again, I like the player, right? Now, when Ineos and the Ineos supporters tell you the strategy of this club, okay, people live up their arse, okay, and they will tell you that Ineos have a strategy, right? Their strategy that has been laid down, and this has come out by Fabrizio, this has come out by Ornstein, that United will not sign players who are over 25 years old, and the value is they've got to be able to be resold, right? Bruno G is going to be 29 years old. So even the strategy of an Ineos, they can't even keep to their own fucking plan. Now, look, I am not saying I don't want this play, but this is another example of Wilcox, Omar Barada, not knowing what they're doing. And it terrifies me. It terrifies me. This summer terrifies me on the fact that they can't even stick to the policy that they've got. I'm not saying that the policy that they've got is right. I think you need to be signing these players who are 27, 28. I think 80 million, 75 is a risk for a player who's 29 years old. We're all assuming he's going to be able to play until he's 34 years old, which is fine. But they can't even stick to the policy that they've set. It terrifies me. Harry says, it blows my mind that the club doesn't have money. How the hell does the biggest club in the world not have any money? Because they are ridiculously stupid. And the reason I say that is because you can go to the middle of nowhere in Africa and you find some kid with a United top on. Exactly. Aaron Lennon on a free. Jesus. I mean, like, how old is... He's got to be well in his 30s now, and there's no other club that is as famous and big as United. How the hell do we have no money? I think the numbers are a lie. Madrid are the biggest club in the world. You attending the Leeds game, pal. I'm not, sadly. United are the biggest club in the world. If Spurs get relegated, is there anyone you would take from Spurs? I would take, what's that young lad with the blonde hair in the midfield called? I can't remember his name. What's it? Bergval. I would take him. I would take the centre back as well. I'd take Van de Ven. Porro would be an interesting one for a cheapish sort of player. A Bergval as well. Maybe Xavi Simons as well. Yeah, our policy is to buy young and sell for profit. You think Madrid are more famous than United? They make more money, but United is more famous. I wouldn't touch any Spurs players. And as much as a broader base than Madrid, why do Madrid like 90 members for their entire club? If United had a membership, it would have lots. I'd bet on. Sally says, naturally, the player that replaces Casemiro has to go beyond the age gap. We need someone in their prime. Look, Mountain Whale. Lucas Bergvall, I think that's him. Van der Ven is not a player I would take now, says Scott. So look, Carlos Baleba. Now look, I'm gonna give you the both sides to this, because I think that there is an argument for, because I've seen many people now just turning away from this player completely, because I think when some fan channels, I think when some people turn against a player, I think it influences a fan base without a fan base actually going back and looking at those stats and looking at those players again. Now look, is Baleba perfect? No. Would Baleba be a risk? Yes. But is what he is good at, and he is fucking elite at what he is good at, does that take away, or do we need? And this is the question. And looks, you're saying this shit. I'm gonna give you the stats, and there are both sides. There are both sides to this. So Bruno G and Tonali and Anderson will get. James, Anderson is going to City. Tonali, I don't think we can get Tonali. I don't. James says he's a third option for squad. So look, I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna start talking about it. You give me your opinions on it. Look, you give me your opinions. Now, for me, there is a limit to what I would pay for him. Do I think if we'd paid 100 in the summer, we'd all be angry? Yes. Do I think he's anywhere near that? No. I think his price should be in and around 60 million, 65. I would be happy given his age, given his wage, and the attributes. So look, I am going to talk about him in regards to a more defensive midfield position. I'm going to compare him to Casemiro now because Casemiro is having a very, very good season. And I'm just going to compare him. So look, what does the data say? So look, the data says that he's performing in the top 5 to top 10 in the league. He is top 3 for winning the ball. So look, when we're talking about midfield, my question to you guys is when we're looking at the 2 positions and we're looking at the 8 and we're looking at the 6. So Vax says we will end up shitting the summer. I don't, and I agree with you. Vizax, I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more completely. But look, the reason why I do this and the reason why I go through this in the way that we do is because look, we're going through we're going through the stats, we're going through this player, and it gives us more, I think, of an idea as to what and why we should or shouldn't sign a player. James says, madness, everyone was raving about him in the summer to take 82 at 100. So glad that we didn't do it. Would have been look, James, I agree with you. I think the money, if we could have gone for 50 to 60, I would have said, look, I would have been happy with that given his age. But I think 100, I think would have been a bit too much. Let's go get Oscar from China. Don't think so. Baleba definitely has the energy and legs we're missing from the midfield. So look, so let's go why his ranking is so high. So look, he makes 5.3 tackles and interceptions per game. That is the top 3 in the league. So when we're talking about, and what I want you to do for me is when we're doing the back and forth for this, I'd love to understand what sort of defensive midfielder that you like. Would you like more of a box to box, an overall midfielder, or do you want a destroyer type? Do you want a Makalele type? Do you want that sort of player. I do think you're right. I do think we need wing backs as well. Curtis Sharma says, I believe that a Balaba profile suits us well. His pace and physicality is a must. So look, we'll go back through it. So look, his defensive output is elite. That's a fact. Okay, his defensive output is 5.3 tackles per and interceptions per game. That's the top 3 in the league. He's top 5 for possession wins, so he wins the ball per 90 minutes, and he literally is among the very best for interceptions per game. There are only, I think there are only 1 or 2 players like higher than him. Now, the fact that he's had a bad season, he's still in the top 3 for defensive stats. He's number 1 for some things. So when we're talking about interceptions, a player that will tackle and give you those defensive outputs, which I think that we miss. Now, look, that is only one aspect, because I think, do we want that ultra defensive player? Now, the problem for me, and again, just because I think I would go for this player doesn't mean that it's perfect. Scott says, give me Valverde. Lim says, we need somebody who can get behind the ball. Now, look, his defensive midfield stats are fucking elite. So when we're talking about a defensive monster with legs, look, he is fantastic. If you pair him up, I think, with a Bruno G or a Tonali, I think you have got a hard-working, very, very good midfielder. Now, Baleba would need, I think, a midfield partner, because he is not a creator. He is a destroyer. You know, he is that box-to-box destroyer. He's exclusively, in my opinion, that he is just an ultra defensive. He's a monster. So look, he's already made. So he makes 120 tackles this season, 70 interception, 200 ball recoveries. And look, he has started 24 games. He's got 1,200 minutes. And look, he's not a flashy player. He reminds me of a Kante. Victor says hi. I think Kante towards the end of his career was better, because I think Kante could shoot, Kante could pass. But he's like a very, very early Kante. The volume, the consistency, the defensive play. I just think, for me, yeah. But Vizak's Mainu is a different type of box-to-box player. Mainu is not defensive. Look, I will happily have this debate with. You've got Mainu, who is the complete opposite to Carlos Baleba. Kobe Mainu, as a ball, with ball retention and ball progression, he's one of the best. For his age, Kobe Mainu, with the ball at his feet and progressing the ball, is one of the best. He's absolutely fantastic. He is a joy to watch. But his defensive stats, his defensive output isn't there. Carlos Baleba, he's opposite to that. His defensive work, his interceptions, all that sort of stuff are absolutely fantastic. But I am with Liam. I don't think Kobe Mainu is a box-to-box player. I think Kobe Mainu, to me, and I know people don't agree with me, I think Kobe Mainu is more of a hybrid number 8. I don't think he's very, very defensive. His stats don't back that up. I think Kobe Mainu is a ball. He retains the ball and he progresses the ball. I think Kobe Mainu is a hybrid 8. But look, people can have their views on that. So look, He is an absolute defensive monster. Now, look, what is the weakness of him? So, his weakness is no goals and no assists. Now, look, whether you are an ultra defensive player, and look, I do agree with you. I think Wharton and him would be a fantastic. I think he'd be a fantastic complement. James says Manu is more of a tempo setter and keep moving. Yeah, James, I think James, I think you're spot on. I think you are. I think he is a. When you want somebody to control the game, right, and you want somebody just to calm things down, and you want somebody to get the ball, win the ball back, keep it, and just maintain the tempo. I think that's him. I've said for a long time, so Stewie, Kobe Manu is a 10, not a double pivot or a traditional 8. Agree with you. I think he's a hybrid. I think he's a hybrid 8. I don't think he's an 8. I don't think he's a 10. I think he's that sort of hybrid player. James says, thank us from Borough for making Carrick a good manager, says Jamie. Jamie, thank you, buddy. So look, Carlos Baleba, weaknesses. Look, so as much as he is, I think he's a defensive, fantastic player. Good evening, JB. I hope you had a good weekend. Would you have Baleba and Tonali if we don't get anyone else? Yes, I do. Yes, I would. I'm 100% agree with you that Wharton and Baleba perfectly complement each other's weaknesses and strengths. I think Kobe Manu would work in a tight midfield when we had Pogba, Herrera. Yeah, you need some output from him, even if he plays at 8. I don't disagree with you there. So look, Carlos Baleba, what are his weak points? So his weak points, look, there is no goals and no assist, and look, there is no hiding away from this. Progressive, when you want somebody to make those progressive passes up the pitch, that's not him. He doesn't have that. I don't think he has that. I don't think he has that Rodri, Caicedo type of player. Rodri, I know obviously he's more of an all-round. Herrera was a fantastic player. Agree with you completely. Kobe has a great future. You know, he needs to show some more energy and improve his pace. So look, when we're talking for me about top level more defensive players, I think you have to have more in your game. Yes, your defensive play can be your main style of play, but you have to have more. So look, this is why I think a Caicedo is probably, for me at the moment, probably one of the best at doing that in the world. So Rodri, I think he was that. I do think, look, his stats are still elite, but I think the injuries taking time to come back. That's what I think. Caicedo, even though he's playing in that shocking team, look, he's still one of the best. And look, this is what he's going to get compared to. Can he be a Moises Caicedo? I don't know yet, but he's still a young guy. So look, when we are talking about these sorts of players, right? You've got your Rodri's, Caicedos, right? Now, when we are talking about other midfielders who are elite, you've got Declan Rice. I think Declan Rice for me is probably the best all-round midfielder of the season. And look, I know Bruno Fernandes fans maybe, but Declan Rice for me, I think is probably the best. Is he world class? I don't think necessarily he's world class, but Declan Rice for me, I think he is elite. Zane says, "Hi, my friend. How are you? Happy from a City fan, Zane. Hope you're doing extremely well, my friend." So look, in those elite players and those elite stats, the Declan Rice is in there. Bruno G is in there. Look, for me, he is up there. He's one of the best, I think. That sort of position, that defensive box-to-box all-round player, and I think he's a leader, so he's up there as well. Palhinha, when you look at his stats, now where where we drop down is where we got the likes of an Adam Wharton, Carlos Baleba, Anana. I think that's where he's at. I think he's got elite defensive stats, but Carlos B needs to get up into that elite. I think he's very, very, very young. But look, I think in terms of an ultra defensive midfielder that I like that. Some people don't. Some people want two more creative, ball progressing, all round defensive centre midfielders. We're not going to get that because those sorts of players cost you money. Tonali is that player. He's going to cost you 100 million. Declan Rice, 100 million. So I think for me, look, I would much rather have a defensive midfielder who is ultra defensive, who is young, who has got legs, and his stats this season are elite for that. I'd much rather have him in there. Can you imagine this? Carlos B learning from Bruno G and Bruno Fernandes. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. So look, the verdict on him really so far this season, look, he is in the top 3, top 5 winning the ball actions. He is elite. Defensive midfielders in the Premier League, he's up there. He is one of the best. But look, is he complete yet? No. So look, what we'll do next is that we will compare him to Casemiro, and just to give you a sort of overall view is what I think the sort of upgrade will possibly be. But look, let me get into the chat. So Jamie says, do you think Borough made Carrick a good coach? No, Jamie, I don't. Look, mate, it's no disrespect. I don't. I'm of the opinion that whilst I think Carrick is doing a good job, and I do think he is, I think people have got to respect him. I don't think Michael Carrick is it. If you look at the tactics, I will still say this. Zane says, I'm happy to see United for the Champions League next season. I bloody hope so, mate. I don't see enough from him yet. I will still say this. I think that we've got to give him until the end of the season. But if you're asking me now, do I think that Borough made him a good coach? Do I think he's a good coach? In terms of being a coach, I don't know yet. I can't answer that because I haven't seen enough consistently that says to me, oh, wow, look at what he's done. We're playing basic counter-attack football. Frank says, how can you sit there and make out you're a real fan whilst wearing a fake shirt? Can I just educate you, right? You do know that literally every single shirt. This is a replica shirt. This is not a fake shirt. This is a replica shirt. You do know that every single shirt that is not worn by a United player is a fake shirt because it's not real. What the fuck are you talking about, you absolute fucking idiot? I mean, what are you talking? So basically now, unless I go out and I literally go to the fucking mega store and wear a shirt that's bought from the mega store, I'm not a real fan. Fucking hell. Mate, how are you allowed out of your house? Are you actually allowed out of your house, or do you need a carer? Like, do you need somebody to look after you, to wipe your mouth and wipe your butt? Because are you always that stupid? Because it seems to me, mate, like a comment like that, you shouldn't be allowed out of your house alone. So I'm going to say, if your carer's there, can somebody give him a hand, because he is struggling tonight. Let me go through the chats. Do you I've done that one. Let's have a little look. Let me go back a little bit more. Stewie says, I put it into chat GBT, which midfield pair would work for the club. Bruno G, Wharton, Baleba, Tonali, Anderson, and the perfect fit was Wharton and Baleba. Says Stewie, look, I can't help it, mate. I can't help being right, Stewie. Can't help it, mate. Anderson is defo the best option there, but it doesn't look like I think he goes to City. I've done that one. I saw Baleba cut through Liverpool's midfield yesterday and carry the ball to the box. Elite, exactly. Does anyone know what? But I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. Every time I look at the BBC football website about players from the team, I keep seeing Bruno's on there. I think we should sign Adam Wharton. I like Adam Wharton. I do. I'm happy to see. Yeah, we've done that one. To replace Casemiro has to be Bruno G or Tonali. I would only take Baleba as a third. Personally, not also Sully. And look, I get that, Sully. I do. I mean, I think for me, and look, mate, I completely respect that view. I think the Baleba narrative has now been driven by bigger fan channels. Sully, I'm not saying, mate, that you're influenced, and I know you're clever, and I know you basically make up your mind on stuff. But I think that the Baleba stuff is driven from bigger fan channels. If you look at Baleba's stats and you look at the defensive stats, that is what I would prefer. I want somebody who is defensive. I also want a Bruno G, a Tonali, a Wharton to accompany them. The problem with that for me is then what happens with Kobe Mainu. Does Bruno Fernandes then go to a proper 10? Like, how do we play that front three? Because if we're going to go to a 4-3-3, we're going to go to a number 6, a number 8, an attacking midfielder, 2 wingers. What does that mean? So I think my initial thought would be that we go for 1, and United's excuse will be that we're going to go for a Bruno G, and that's all we're going to go through. But I actually, Sully, I wouldn't mind him as a third. For me, would I have a Bruno G over him? Probably yes, because I think if we're going to win, if we want to win a league, if we want to get into the Champions League, we need leaders, we need experience. But what I'm hoping for, that this club doesn't just go, we get one and done. Again, I've seen the figures, how we get to a left winger, a right winger, good, carry good to the end of the season. Then we need the best in class. Good win for us today, says Kieran. Reported. What are you reporting for? Because you've come on the channel to give me stuff. Like, reported for what? They can go back and watch the fucking video, you idiot. It's really quite simple. Like, really simple. Excellent. Ignore him, don't give him airtime. I would never wear a grey shirt. Fergie, you are an Arsenal fan crying. Gabriel says, do we think Anderson to City is a done deal? I think he'd play perfect, but he's average. He's gone to City. Look, he's gone to City. There is. I would say this. He's gone to City for a couple of reasons. Number one, City are very good at getting the players that they want. City are literally mopping up the best players right now because I think they know they're going to get a ban, and they're going to pay him wages. They're going to pay him 300k a week. We are not that club anymore, so we can't pay him 300k a week. So look, I would say Anderson, if you see any United channels talking about him for clicks, to go and tell them to piss off, because it is a load of bollocks. What I guarantee you, what you're gonna have now What you're going to have now, and I guarantee it for the next 3 weeks, Tonali, Bruno G, and I've seen this. We are not close to signing a Bruno G, right? Fabrizio Romano, that people are using to say that, oh, we're going to sign him. He's basically gone and said that we have got representatives to talk to his agent, but United appreciate him. Those are his words. They're not United have gone to the Geordies and he's going to put pen to paper like other people are saying. We've signed him. Breaking fucking news. It's not breaking news. Our people have gone to talk to his people to sound him out. That literally is it. And Fabrizio Romano has basically said that United appreciate him. He's doing the club's work because United, again, are shit scared in case somebody comes in and buys the player. I don't think someone else is going to come in and buy and pay the money that we're probably willing to pay. But look, don't be fooled. Just do not be fooled. You're spot on with those channels. Want to drive the narrative. It is. And look, it's all there. It's all there. A United fan giving another fan shit isn't a real fan. And you come on here, a United channel, and call people waste. Wharton passing range reminds me of Carrick. I think Wharton is more an athlete. Do you know what, Stewie? Now that you said that, I think you're right. I've never thought about Wharton in that way before. I think you're right, Stewie. I think you're spot on. I think Wharton is a Carrick type. I think you're spot on. I do. Look. Yeah, I'm laughing at Chelsea and Spurs yet again. We are still 1 point above Villa, but now we have to wait 23 long days without a game to help our head owners. Exactly that. Benching Monu shouldn't be considered a taboo. Every top club should make their plays fight for places. And look, I am with you. I am not bothered. Look, I don't say it from me because I'm scared of benching a Kobe Manu. Look, I think this club will use that as an excuse. Everything that I say here is this, right? Any player in this squad should never be safe, right? No player in this squad should ever be safe. Bruno Fernandes shouldn't ever walk into this club thinking that he is the dog's bollocks and he's going to play every single game. If he thinks that, we failed, right? Larman's in goal. What a wonderful keeper, right? I don't want him next season to be thinking that he's going to walk into this ground and he's going to go into goal. I want Vitek next season to come in, push him. The problem with these players this season, who's Luke Shaw? Like, who's going to push him? Bruno Fernandes, who's pushing him? Casemiro, like, who's pushing him? I'm not saying that that's their fault, but you've made a fantastic point there. We should be getting a Bruno G and a Carlos Baleba and a Kobe Manu because we've got Casemiro, who's going to go, Ugarte, Kobe Manu, right? We needed at least one more. So we're going to lose Casemiro. Ugarte should be gone. So we need 3. Is this club going to be so cheap and use the fact that Kobe Manu is going to play as an 8? And I think they're going to play him in the wrong position as the reason why we're not going to buy 2 centre midfielders. Why are we in debt, though? Educate yourself. Exactly. People don't take the time. People don't take the time. People don't take the time and say, I'm with you. Nah, you just get people on here who are just stupid. Arsenal won trophy down, goodbye to the quad. What I don't get, JB, is how DCL didn't get a call up, but Welbeck doesn't. I don't know. There are certain players, Scott. There are certain players who are not seen as the exciting players. Welbeck. How does Welbeck not get into this England squad? If you're looking for a highly experienced Premier League winning player who is consistent, he's big, he's strong, he's smart, I would take a Welbeck every day. If you want that sort of, and I'm not saying that they're the same player, right? And I'm not suggesting this, but if you get that Emil Heskey, and I'm not saying that Emil Heskey was a great player. I think Welbeck is far superior than a Heskey, but you've got to take different types of players. And for me, Welbeck is a hark back to an old sort of striker. I still think he's better than an old school striker. I think he's changed his game. But if you want to bring on a proper striker who's going to make those runs, who's going to put the team first instead of himself, I think he'd be a great shot. Radcliffe and Ineos promised the best English talent when they brought the club. It's time they proved it. Yes, I do agree. My third midfield after Watton and Baleba is a Gomez. Howdy, mate. Yes, my friend, we need a new centre-back to sell. Dallo, follow with the Red Army from Borough. Larmans is an amazing keeper. He will make us better. That's how it should be. Every player needs to earn their spot. I agree with you. We should have not had Shesko on the bench for the Bournemouth game. What's your opinion about making an official complaint about our pen? Look, Simon, look, I don't see the point. Look, Simon, I get it. But for me, this is my opinion on it. And perhaps people are different to me, right? Should we have had a penalty? Yes, right. But why did we need a penalty to win the game? Like, it's almost a bit like you're doing something, and because you don't get your own way, you go and tell the teacher, you go and tell your parents because you didn't get your own way. Yes, you probably something should have gone in your favour, but because you didn't get something on your own and your own way, you go and tell the teacher. What's it going to do? Is it going to bring us 3 points? No. Other than the penalty, did we deserve to win the game? No. Why are we moaning and whinging? Not necessarily us on here, but why are we that club who are moaning and whinging and bitching that we didn't get an extra 2 points? How about go on the pitch? And how about, instead of moaning that the other team didn't get a red card, moaning that we didn't get a penalty, how about winning the game on performance? How about not starting a game like you've just come back from the pub? How about starting a game correctly? How about playing like you've not been out on the piss for the last week? You have a week off in games. And the funny thing for me is the Bournemouth players had the equal amount of time off and they looked superior. Just because we didn't get our own way. And was it a penalty? Yes, it was. But we didn't get it. So, and at that point, we could have gone on to win the game. Yes, you can argue. But I've seen people saying that we were robbed. We were robbed of a penalty. We weren't robbed of the game. We've still plenty of time to win the game. Why did we need a penalty to win the game? So us moaning and whinging as a club, look, I get it. And I think it really, really depends on how you see the game. But my standards are fucking higher than that. You know, it's not going to give us what is the FA or the Premier League or VAR going to do? Are they going to award us 2 points? No. What's the point? Larmans has transformed the sign of the season. I think all the signings of him, Cunha, Mbeumo and Cheska, have all been a success. Yeah, I think Larmans is a wonderful player. I think Mbeumo started off well. I don't know what's going on there. Shesko, I think, has been great, but I do agree. I think all of those signings have improved us. I do. Welbeck, right place, right time. Facts. He's the highest English scorer in the Premier League. I'm glad we signed Lamens instead of. Yeah, let's get rid of Anana and Biinda. Get in both Brinergy and Baleba would be a very good window for United. Main shouldn't be untouchable. United has been. I'm not reading that out. Best of luck, lads. I'm going to bed now. Hopefully, we're on the up. I've subscribed. Thank you, James, mate. I have a good one, buddy. Lamens is a talent. He's an ex-Courtois. He's Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire's was a penalty, but it wasn't a red card. What a dump. I don't look keyboard, mate. I don't get it. I guarantee you, keyboard. I'm fucking smarter than you are, buddy. Guarantee it. 100%. 100%. Someone says I would love to have Welbeck in our team instead of having him score. Again. Agreed. He was past him, so to be fair, through and goal. But they were both pens. I do agree. We looked leggy for over a week. I'm going to bed. Have a good night. Zane, have a good one, buddy. Let's have a little look. Replay the game, says Scott. We had 12 minutes of added time. Look, I still think we need a quick centre back than Maguire. Maguire gave away the penalty because of his lack of mobility. He can be a squad player. And look. Maguire shouldn't be our first teamer. Maguire should be a squad player. I'm sorry. Maguire should be a squad player. There's no way for me Maguire should be a starter. He's 35 years old. Doesn't mean to say I think he's a bad player. He shouldn't be getting into the squad. The fact that we've got a 34-year-old starting centre-back who's got the turning circle of a barge, and that's not his fault. It is what it is. Ethan says, "Hi, hello, buddy. We can't complain about it and can't rely on officials. We should be beating teams by all means necessary. It was a penalty, but the officials in the league are consistently poor." Exactly. So, I wanted to go through. I wanted just to do a quick comparison between Carlos Baleba and Casemiro, and the reason why I wanted to do that more so is because look, I wanted to compare two players this season. Now, one is 22, one is 33, 34 years old. And I just think it's interesting to compare the ages of two. And does experience, in some respects, trump youth? So let's go through that. Ray says in maybe in the majority, but I would give Maguire another contract. Not a big one, to be fair. Look, Ray, he's got a contract. I would give Casemiro a year. I would give Maguire an extra year. I would do. Because I think we can't lose all of that experience, but I would give him a year. So look, where do I think the difference between these two players are? So look, Casemiro, for me, where I think Casemiro trumps him this season is experience. I think goals, and I think he is a leader on the pitch. Look, whatever I've said and say about Casemiro, there is no doubt Casemiro's experience is getting through this season. Casemiro this season, I think there are two. I think there is one major contributing factor to this season, right? And I'll tell you what it is. The contributing factor this season to Casemiro's rise is how shit the season has been. And look, this is how you know how shit the season is when United fuck up, right? We were totally dog shit. Liverpool get beaten. Chelsea get annihilated. Aston Villa win, right? But this season is a shocking season. And look, by no means am I trying to detract from Arsenal winning a poor league, between us finishing third. This is a really, really poor season. Scott says, JB, if you could get one player in each position to rebuild, who would you get? Jesus Christ. Bloody hell. Get back to me on centre backs. I like Hakimi. I like Lewis Hall on the left. Centre midfield is obviously would be an Anderson or a Valverde. I would have liked Semenyo. I think he's a fantastic player. I like Nemcha from Dortmund on the left. Up front, who do I like up front? Strikers. Strikers are a little bit of a weird one for me because I'm not necessarily convinced. I mean, Osimhen, I think, would probably be the striker up front for me, but I don't think we're too far away. I think if we got a Valverde in there, it depends on how we're going to play on the wides. But I do like Hakimi. I do like Lewis Hall. Yeah, I mean, centre back wise, I don't know. Casemiro's been playing well under carried. Now look, this season, as I've said, look, I think it's a very, very poor season. I think that is one of the reasons for Casemiro's resurgence. But also, to be fair to Casemiro, his experience, his goals. I mean, his goals this season. Look, whatever happens, even if it's a poor season, even if this is not the vintage league, Casemiro, the records will show Casemiro has had a good season, and he has. He's been very, very inconsistent this season, but look, he has been available. He's been there. I think his experience and his goals have helped us this season. But look, let's not pretend he's been consistent the whole season. These last couple of games where he has scored the odd goal here and there, his overall play hasn't been great. But look, he has been our, what competition is there for him this season? So prediction for the Chelsea away game, is that against us? Is that for us? If it's us, that could go anyway. Baleba, what does he do right compared to Casemiro? Baleba tackling far superior, interceptions and his ability to run around the pitch. Now look, when you compare those two, you could, I will say this, that Casemiro, if he had the legs, with his experience, obviously he would be the better player. Baleba, tenacious, but he's a ball winner, interceptions and mobility. So like when we're talking about, if we are looking at who is going to win these, right? So we're gonna go defending. We're going to go on the ball. We're going to go impact, athleticism, and we're going to go through those sorts of things. Sam says, I've just looked on the BBC website and we're looking at Lewis Skelly. Believe that when I see it. Again, look, we're looking at all these. We're going to get linked to it. I mean, I will look into that. I will ask my person. And look, the funny thing as well, I just wanted to mention this as well because I've not been on in a while. Last week, I said to you that I spoke to my contact, and he basically said, and this, I think this was a week and a half ago. He basically said, look for Casemiro, even though we're saying that Casemiro is going to leave. Just be aware that that the club has asked Casemiro to hold back in a decision for now because they don't know what the plan is, and there is a potential for Casemiro to sign another contract. Doesn't mean he's going to, but it just means that look, just hold fire because Casemiro, they've asked him just to hold off. Lo and behold, yesterday, the day before, bigger fan channels are now coming out and basically saying that Casemiro could sign a new contract. Look, all I'm going to say is this. We said this a week and a half ago. I got told that. I don't get told loads. I got told about the Amarin stuff, and I mentioned it before anyone else. That came true. I've mentioned a couple of bits and bobs. The Casemiro thing, we mentioned that a week and a half ago. Yesterday, it started to come out. So look, Fabrizio Romano has said, Fabrizio has basically said that, Casemiro is going to leave. I'm going to slightly go against him. I'm going to slightly go against him and just say, look, I've been told something slightly different to that. It's not cast in stone that Casemiro is definitely going to go. Casemiro, 85% will probably go. But this club has asked him to hold up making a choice, because just in case United can't get their first, second, or third, they've got Casemiro there. So they've just hosted. Look, I am going to go against Fabrizio Romano, and I'm going to basically say, look, it's not for definite. It's not 100%. So look, just keep an eye on Casemiro. You think Casa would like to play Champions League for one more time? Yeah, I do. I think Casemiro's not ready yet. I think Casemiro's not ready to retire just yet. I think Casemiro wants Champions League once more. Some says it's going to be fun at my local because the barmaid is a City fan and her son supports Arsenal. I go there once a week, says Simon. So look, round one, look, defending. So Balaba against Casemiro. So when we're talking about tackles, interceptions, recoveries of the ball, who wins that one? So Carlos Baleba. Look, in terms of that tackles, interceptions, recovery, Carlos wins that every day of the week. Now look, on the ball. Now this is an attribute that I think you've got to have as a defensive midfielder, if that's what you sort of want. On the ball, passing, control, ball retention. Look, Casemiro, I think, just wins it. I don't think either are elite at that. Casemiro now, he doesn't really control the game that much. His ball retention isn't great. His passing is okay as well. But look, I think Casemiro nicks it, because I think in terms of that, I think that Balaba's stats are not great. So I think that even though he's got a lot to learn, Casemiro is 34 years old, by the way. Casemiro is 34 years old. And look, he's won the Champions League with an absolute superstar player. He was. Balaba isn't far behind now. So look, he's surpassed Casemiro as he actually should do. But he is catching up. Impact. So let's talk about impact, because look, players need to have an impact. And still, when we are talking about goals, the big moments in games, influences of games, Casemiro wins that. The amount of goals through Casemiro's own experience, through his mentality, his experience. Look, Casemiro has an impact, and he has. Whether people like it or not, Casemiro has had an impact. He scored important goals this season. If I was a Casemiro, I'd be so frustrated, and I know what it's like. When you do some sort of sport and your body goes, right, Costa's pissing me off, so you can go on the fucking naughty step. When you play a sport and your brain can still do it and the hunger's still there, but your legs can't, it must be so frustrating for Casemiro. But his impact this season, and again, we've got to think about, I'm comparing Casemiro this season to a kid who's 22 years old. It doesn't speak much really at the moment for Carlos B, when the fact that I think Casemiro is still having a very, very big impact, his goals, his moments, his influence. I don't think there are many players at Casemiro's age who would have that impact. And I think the reason why Casemiro is having that sort of impact this season is because he was world class. I think his brain is still there, and I think he knows he's learning his body now. So I think them. Athleticism. So when we're talking about pace, mobility, the ability to cover the ground, Baleba. All day long. He is younger. I think he's more of a modern defensive midfielder. Obviously, doesn't have the attributes like the passing control yet, but in terms of a physical monster, he's obviously far superior. And look, when we're talking about the future as well, look, when we're talking about the future of these players, Casemiro, there is no future. Whatever people think about Carlos Baleba, someone says, Alex, congratulations on your win. You halted. Yes, look, Alex, congratulations to City today. You've done very, very well. Go to Costa Rica. I'd love to go to Costa Rica when your legs don't work like they used to before. Oh God, are you quoting Ed fucking Sheeran, Scott? Jesus Christ. The spirit is willing, but sometimes the flesh can be a little weak. When Scott's quoting fucking Ed Sheeran, Jesus Christ, Scott, you got to get more taste, mate. Look, I'm going to be consistent in what I said about Baleba. I was on holiday and I remember talking about this player and being very, very excited about this player. Now, one of the things I did say, and I remember most of the things that I say, do not let the grey hair confuse you, is if we'd have paid 100 million, just fitting in with the topic, JB. I know, Scotty. When I said, even if you signed him for 100 million, right, and you spread that over 5 years, I wouldn't really mind. If we'd have signed him for 100 million, with hindsight looking to now, well, we don't know because he hasn't signed. I still wouldn't have been that bothered, because if you amortize, and we've got to talk about this now, right? So one of the advantages that people are not thinking about here is the amortization, right? If you pay, let's just say you pay 70 million for him, right? His wages, I think, are something ridiculous, like 15 grand a week, right? If you put him on, let's just say, I don't know, 120, 100, yeah, let's just say that, right? If you amortize 70 million and 120 grand a week at 22, right? You've basically paid for him by the time he's 27, and you could possibly still get some money for him. Bruno G, and again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't get him. I'm not saying that we shouldn't get him. But if you're looking at Bruno G, and let's just say there's only the toss up between two. If you go for Bruno G at 29, he's probably going to cost you 80 million. His wages are going to be in a region of 200. If you amortize that over 5 years, he's going to be 34 years old and there's going to be no value left. Now, I'm not saying that should be the thinking, but you've got to put yourselves in the mind of this club. What deal is this ownership likely to do? Bruno G for 80 million, 200k a week over 5 years at 29, or are they more than likely to do 70 million on a kid who's 22 that's going to cost you 120 grand a week, and also in 5 years time you'll be 27. So even if he costs you 70 million, let's just say when he's 27, 8, and say you sell him for 40 million, you've effectively paid him off, and for the value that you've paid, you've only spent 30 million over the 5 years. I'm not saying that Bruno G is not a better player. but it's all about amortization. And look, should we be worried as fans about amortization? Should we be concerned about sell on value? Should we be concerned about that? No. But when we're looking and we're trying to cut through the bullshit, because we're going to have this. We're going to have for the next 23 days bullshit, right? If you go through the bullshit, and I'm going to do it. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for more players to be sort of linked to us. Then I'm going to do a show, and we're going to list all of the players that we're going to sign, that we could potentially sign, and we're going to see if we can sign those players. So when we think about these players, we've got to think about amortization. We've got to think about age. We've got to get into the minds of these arseholes. And I think Baleba deal, I think of the Bruno G deal and the Baleba deal, I think the Baleba deal is probably the deal that they would do. And I think the Baleba deal is the one from a financial standpoint is what they will do. And I think the Bruno G deal is one that they will do if they're going to panic, because I don't think that their plan is to sign a 29-year-old midfielder, no matter how good people think he is, from Newcastle when their ethos has been something else. We've been told for the last 2 years that their mantra is we don't sign players over 25 years old. They have to be able to be sold at some point. Bruno G for me would represent a panic buy. Fantastic player. Fantastic player. But I think that represents a panic buy for me. So look, that's where I am on that. Let's get through what you guys are saying. Someone says, some of our players are aging. They have to have Saga on their shirts. I love it. Until they have signed, Dino's in the house. Until they have signed on the dotted line, I don't believe the club will spin. Exactly. Until they dot the I's and cross the T's. Exactly. It's all about sell on value. I just hope we don't focus on one player throughout the window as we do and watch others slip through our fingers. Simon, I think that's exactly what we're going to do, mate. It's summer where recruitment is massive, and possibly of the Champions League next season. Exactly. Before long, we will have to start felling the deadwood of our team. Premier League is trash. That's really funny coming from a Bayern Munich fan, whereby you basically have got a monopoly in the Bundesliga. The Bundesliga has 2 good teams. It's really easy to say when you're in a league whereby the most powerful team in the league can cherry pick from the rest of the league. Bayern Munich are basically the gangsters of the Bundesliga. So, I'd like to see Bayern every week play somebody like a Burnley, play somebody like a Brighton instead of a team called Paulie. Sell to buy. Yes, I agree. We take too much time in the window to get players. Used to get his business done as quick as possible. Exactly why the players are without a manager, I don't know. Try to make Tonali as third choice. Exactly. Yes, we do. So look, guys, I am going to go. Look, fantastic show. I didn't plan to do one tonight, but look, I think it's always worth doing a show on either a Saturday or a Sunday night. So look, it's the pattern of shows is going to be a little bit up and down, namely because of work. Why we signing? Look, Moss, because we will look. The reason why we're signing players, and I don't disagree. Look, Moss, I don't disagree with this. We should be signing players that fit the club. Any internal whatsoever. I might do the England game. I might if there's an interesting match, then yeah, I might do one. Yeah, I know I might do one. Yeah, I might do one because because look, I'm not gonna spam you guys with shit. I What does that mean? So look, Moss, look, the problem that we've got before I go, because Moss, I think that's a good point, right? Is this, look, we have signed players for managers, right? And it doesn't work. We signed players for Amarin. Sorry, we didn't. We signed players for Ollie. We signed players for Jose. Well, we didn't. Well, we signed some players. We signed players for Van Gaal. We signed players for some for Jose. We signed a couple for Ollie, Eric Ten Hag. The problem is, the club went down at Amarin's way. No, it didn't. It really didn't. It didn't go down his way. Yeah, but the problem is, Moss, is that we've bought players for the manager. On Eric Ten Hag, I think we spent 400 million. On Ollie, we spent 400 million. Look, we Moss, in my view, this is my view. We need to sign players for what we're trying to do. If we had a competent structure, we should bring in a manager and say we want to play a 4-3-3, right? We want to coach. You can coach. We'll give you a say on players, but what we want you to do, we want you to coach. You can pick the team. The only thing that we want you to do is our mandate to, because I do think that every coach, I think every single coach, you can have Eddie. I think every single manager has to be judged on something, right? I don't want this board. No, Moss. I don't want this board. Where I would agree with you, I want a competent board and a competent club to say, this is our style of play. What you have to do is you have to play a 4-3-3. You have to have a youth player in your squad every single game. Yeah, Billy, mate, have a good one, buddy. But other than that, you can have a say in the players that we pick. Doesn't mean that we're going to pick them, but you can have a say. You can pick who you want. You don't have to pick the young player, but you've got to have one in the team because that is our history. But you can play, right? The problem is, if you let a manager like an Amarin or a Ten Hag who hasn't been here for 10 years, look, City would happily let Pep pick his players because he's been here for nearly 10 years. But Moss, we're in such a mess. We're in such a mess, Moss, that I don't trust the board to pick the players. I don't trust the coaches to pick the players. I don't trust the players. So Moss, look, I think you make a good point. I don't trust players. Scott says, breaking news tomorrow, JB, Spurs manager sacked in the morning. Yeah, I think he's gone. Look, I think the only reason why Slot hasn't gone is because Liverpool are still in the I think Liverpool are still in the Champions League. So the only reason why he's not gone is because if the moment Slot is gone out the Champions League, and the moment that Liverpool can't finish in the top 3 or 4, and then I think he's gone. I hope it's breaking news for Eddie Howe. Somebody doesn't like Eddie Howe. Moss said, look, what's going to happen, Moss? What's going to happen is this. Jason Wilcox, Omar Barada are going to go and pick the players. That is what's going to happen. And there's nothing us can do about it. I'm telling you now, come this window, the footballing structure are going to go out and they're going to go buy the players. So that is what's going to happen. That's it. That's it. Eagles going back to Castle Dracula. I love it. They're still 1 point from the relegation zone. They are. So look, Spurs. Fucking hell, Spurs fans. I know a load of Spurs fans. Yeah. I think the Spurs fans that I know, it's the first time I've seen them and they really believe that they're going to go down. So look, again, I don't take any happiness or joy. But let's see. So look, guys, I am going to go. Moss says Spurs, Arsenal and Chelsea are all crying. Scott is going to be the bottle time for us. So look, guys, fantastic show. Look, I hopefully be back some point tomorrow. Next week is a busy work week for me, so if I do a show, it's going to be more towards the evening time. So yes, it's going to be a busy week for me in work. I'm not going to spam you guys for shit as well. I'll try and do a show where I'll round everything up, and then I'll just do one long show as well. If you are a Spurs fan, then there is a cure for it. Yeah, it's called supporting West Ham. So look, guys, on that note, look, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Look, you guys are legends. I never get bored saying look, thank you so much for being here. Look, the support is fantastic. So look, guys, I will hopefully be back tomorrow. If not, I will see you soon. And look, have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm JB. This is the United Devil channel. You guys are legends. Thank you for supporting the channel, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care.